Welcome to the Yin Project. I'm your host, Emily Bevan. Hi, Jeanne.
Hey, Emily. Excited to be here.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. You are the first guest of season 2,
Nice.
which has been a very long time coming for me. It's been very painful as I've been setting up my new studio and just getting all of the pieces in place. So I'm really, really excited to have you as the first guest for season 2.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk a little bit today about your background. And I always like to kind of just jump right into it
Yeah.
and give us the origin story of how you became a nutritionist, how you were credentialed, and how you got interested in it. What was that educational experience like for you?
Yeah, great questions. Well, nutrition came to me when it comes to nutrition as this greater overarching thing. It really began in my 20s, early 20s, actually before my teens when I was having stomach issues. But it turned out to be IBS, which in the late 90s, people knew zero about. And it was just this blanket statement. Okay, you must have IBS. Nothing else looks wrong. I was the youngest person in my hometown to have a colonoscopy
Wow.
at 17, but nothing was found. You know, there were no crazy red flags. And that's why they were just like blanket statement IBS, which now we know so much more about, digestive issues, gut health, the microbiome, all that. But really, so that's where my journey started because I was uncomfortable. I usually had a stomach ache. And so I really kind of suffered through that for a while. And then I was lucky enough to be able to go to a holistic practitioner who was an ND, so a naturopathic doctor. And that
Where was this?
And that was in she was in Burlingame. So she was like in the little downtown Burlingame area. And so Bay Area. And so when I got to see her,
that's surprising. Like even back then in the late 90s, you would think that the Bay Area was much more progressive, and apparently
and this
it wasn't.
This part of my story in my early 20s, so that would have been fast forward to like, the mid 2000s. So it's still at that point I had to travel. I lived in the East Bay. I had to travel an hour to get to a naturopathic doctor. So it is surprising.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is where my eyes were opened to the power and possibility of healing and transformation through what we put in our bodies or what we choose not to put in our bodies. And that's where I was just like, something finally lit up in me. Because if you knew me as a kid, even as a young adult, I was like, what am I going to be when I grow up? Like I was so excited about it, but I hadn't found my passion even as I was in my young 20s and working for a business management consulting firm. I was still kind of searching. So when this kind of life event happened, when I found out, the transformation that can come with altering your diet, I was like, this is what I want to tell the world, So, I went to school. I found, luckily, in the Bay Area, there is one school, Bowman College, that is what was one of the only actual colleges that was an in-person nutrition program, instead of it being like online or just, go at your own pace situation. So this is actually got to be in a community and in a class with other people for a year and a half and walk through that program. And that was a great experience. And that, just showed it. I am the person who loves to sit in a lecture and just soak in all the info. And so I knew I was where I should be. So Bowman was a great experience. In hindsight, this is totally just being vulnerable, but in hindsight, there was a lack of, now here's what to do with all of this information, right? So it was kind of been a learning curve on, you may have all of this great information, but do you have any business savvy? Do you know what to do with it? Do you know how to sell yourself? So that's been a whole other education. But yeah, that kind
It's a
of,
really interesting point.
yeah,
And I watched a little mini documentary that Salesforce had put together, and they were talking about the importance of sales because everyone is selling,
right,
and it's not something that you can go to school for.
right, right. And
You're just supposed to learn it kind of on the job.
yeah,
Same thing kind of with management. We're just supposed to be managers,
right,
but you're not really going to receive any type of training on how to manage people, which I'm not good at. And I was never good at, and I didn't like doing it.
right,
But that was the expectation
right,
prior to my career in real estate, was that, oh, well, now you're growing in your career. Now you're just going to manage people.
right. Yeah,
And same thing with sales. Once you get really good at sales, then they want you to be a sales manager.
right.
And that's like a totally different
A
skill
totally
set.
different role. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's a whole different piece to this journey that I'm on now. But um, that's kind of where I got started in nutrition. So I just, when I finally realized, hey, I want to go to school for this, that was for me, growing up with two college professors as parents. The going to school
Mm,
piece was like the automatic, like that's just where my brain
right.
went. It wasn't like, okay, let's think about some different niche areas you want to study first, or what does it look like to then be your own, have your own practice, like what does that even mean, so I didn't really
Hmm.
think about those details as much as just I need
Hmm.
the education. So
Right.
that's where I started.
Right.
Yeah.
And fast
Mm-hmm.
forward, bring me up to, because you had a really successful granola company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Bring
so
me up
that
to speed. Like, how did that transition?
so those things were happening, sorry, simultaneously. I I've always had a thing for granola. It's just to me the perfect food. Anyway, I would make some, and as I became more and more aware of ingredients, more aware of, okay, refined sweeteners versus natural options, more aware of fillers that were in store-bought granola, for example, I realized there was nothing on the market that was insanely delicious, because it has to be delicious. And
Hmm.
I can say that this is an organic product with nothing refined in it. And that's what
Hmm.
I was looking for as a consumer. If I were to purchase granola opposed to making it, that's what I felt like there was a void. And so
Hmm.
I started making it and giving it to friends and family, honestly, Christmas gifts. Or little, gifts here and there. And then I had people start to ask, hey, can I pay you to make me some for a baby shower? Or, that very organic progression from just gifting it to people to then someone requesting it to then like, okay. And this was also in the time frame of that very, that incubation period in the city where like food trucks are just becoming
Hmm.
such an amazing experience and around every corner. And it was the food, I feel like the small business food world was really blowing up. So,
Hmm.
um, have living in that entrepreneurial spirit in that city, it was like a conversation between my husband and I, why don't you try it? Like, why don't you go for it? And I was getting close to finishing up at Bowman College. And so it felt interesting, that I was finishing up this education that would really be focused more on working with clients one on one, talking about nutrition. But I, came to this realization that I want to sell this product that is nutrition as a product, So
Hmm. Hmm.
anyway, it just felt like it was the opportunity, it was the time, it had the momentum and the energy, myself feeling like I'm just going to try it.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And so as I was finishing up at Bowman College, I started doing all the research and really looking into like, how do I do this? And it was just, it was born into the real niche, and the vibe was small artisanal, like the coffee shops of SF and the small grocers that care about our local handmade food.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I started off in this. You might remember this place in North Beach. It was called Tante Marie's Cooking School. It's a French
Yes.
cooking school
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
like, I guess, an icon for decades.
Yeah.
And she would let me. They let me bake in there overnight. So I had to,
Nice.
but I had to pack in, pack out. So I literally had to
Yeah.
roll in with all of my, you know, Cambros and tubs of ingredients and everything kind of ready to go in my sheet pans. And I would bring someone with me and we would start baking, you know, at like 3 a.m., go to like 3 till 9 or something. And
Wow.
yeah, so that was a crazy, but you know, I think a lot of people who have these like memories of when they started up something new and it was a whole new adventure. It's heartwarming. It's a heartwarming memory. You know, it was very hard at the time when that alarm would go off to get up. But anyway, so I started off doing it overnight and eventually got enough wholesale clients between coffee shops and Buy Right, you know, and Good Eggs was just starting at this time.
Okay.
So you're familiar with them, yeah? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I love Good Eggs, and they're now more up in the North Bay area too. But so that was all happening, and I finally got to a point where I could work at a kitchen during daylight hours and at a commissary down in, you know, the southern part of the city where there's bunches of warehouses that are kitchens.
Right.
So that's kind of how that played out. And I think I understand it so much more now that that's hindsight, but I was doing wholesale, but I was also then doing direct to customer, like online and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I were to do it over again, which, you know, just to all you worthy granola lovers out there, there may be a day for that, but I think I would focus on one thing, like just wholesale, just, you know,
Okay.
or just, you know, one avenue instead of trying to be many things to many people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I eventually came to a point where after having my daughter, so this was about 5 years into Worthy Granola, had my daughter, and as many women can relate to, you know, sometimes postpartum is rough. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I had a difficult traumatic delivery experience that was unforeseen, obviously. And I was in a fog for 6 months at least. And
Mm.
I kept the business afloat with the help of my two employees. But after having my daughter, I wasn't able to get that fire, like that sell, grow the business. Like I just couldn't get that back. Like I was just in a
Mm-hmm.
different world now, as you can relate
Mm-hmm.
to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we had such a lovely Bay Area fan base, and we were so happy when we were able to sell the business to someone who had a vision at the time to grow the company. And I was really yearning at that point to get to work with people one on one, or you know, just
Right.
in the concept of nutrition as a service for people versus as a product. And
Let's talk about
yeah,
that a little bit because I think it would be really helpful for people. And it's amazing that you were able to sell the business.
yeah,
Like let's talk a little bit about that decision
yeah.
and what went into that. And then how did you go about actually finding a
Whew.
buyer for it?
Yeah. So it was my husband would tell you it took me probably I waited longer than maybe I should have, but I was just, you know, this was my first baby and
Yeah,
I thought that, you know, I felt like selling the business was quitting, was giving up, was
totally.
you know, and there were so many like I really cared about the people who loved it because it was a part of me and it was a part of my growing up as an adult and finding my place in this world. So it definitely was this part of me that I was really reluctant to let go of. But yeah, so I had actually had drafted up a newsletter to go out to my, you know, my email base, and to say, you know, like thank you, you know, to announce that I would be closing. And
Hmm.
before that happened, I connected with one of our customers, and it just kind of became this conversation. And it's just really crazy how it fell into place. And they actually were a couple from out of town, but they used to live here, you know, in the city, and they wanted to take it and grow it where they lived. And keep it online so that it could still be purchased by people. So I felt like, okay, it would still have a representation in the city. At first, they were going to be keeping all the coffee shop accounts, so I didn't feel like I was going to let anybody down. So I guess that kind of helped me feel like I could make that decision. And I really knew that, I mean, I knew it was the right call, but I was just, it was hard to make. So I was glad when this person, and there really was a couple that came along that seemed like they had the same ethos and just ideas about what it could be. So I felt, more comfortable about that idea of selling it and letting it live on.
Is it still available, and is it still Worthy Granola, or did they change the branding?
Well, you know what? They just stopped. And so it's so sad. But I also know that I would love to create a reiteration of that. There is no, yeah, they planned on moving it up to a Portland area and didn't go well for them. So that was a sad thing for me, but I also kind of feel like, okay, it's not out there in the world anymore. So maybe I will reintroduce it back into the world at some point. So that's kind of my silver lining. And the thought of it for a future iteration. I always joke about, I'm like, okay, when my kids are, maybe this is an empty nester situation. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And
we all have multiple careers now.
Right.
It is less rare for someone, probably more for doctors,
right.
attorneys, something that is a little bit more traditional, maybe teachers, something where there is a pension, a major incentive to have a career in its entirety. But more and more, and especially in the future,
right.
for our children, they are saying they're going to be having multiple iterations of a career.
Right.
My background is in food, as you know,
Yeah.
and I like to say that, someday I'm going to open up my own restaurant, and I'm going to combine it with real estate. I'm going to find the perfect location.
Right.
And I'm going to open up some kind of restaurant, because that's really who I am, at my core. And I'd love to have my kids involved. And I have this vision one day of doing that.
Nice.
And who knows what it will look like.
All right. Well,
but
this is exciting news.
I know it will come true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in 20 years,
okay,
we'll see.
That's great. So we'll keep.
Well, we're all living longer, and thanks to you, you're going to live forever, because you're eating so healthy, and you're teaching all of us, how to eat healthy. And right now, there is so much attention on food and what we are putting into our bodies.
Yeah.
And there's so much attention on how food is prepared. And frankly, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to have a conversation with you. I see it in my own education and the things that I'm following and listening to. There's a lot of noise and information out there. So that's definitely something I want to dive into.
Great.
And I think it's a good segue. So now today, you're working one-on-one with clients.
Right.
Who is your ideal client?
So my ideal client, it's such a great question, because as a small business, getting started, you're like, any client who wants to be your client, they're your ideal client.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's really, as you do take on anyone sometimes, you come to realize that the ideal client is someone who is just open, who is because there might be someone who pays you to be their nutritional guide and help them whatever, but I still can't do the work for them. So, you get people, I have clients who I chase them, to have our next, even though they've already paid, to have our next conversation, because they probably, they've got these mental block of, I haven't done the work. I haven't done what she suggested. I probably can't talk yet, and it's so not about that. So it's really somebody who's just open and just wants to keep going no matter what. If they feel like they had a crappy month and they did none of my action steps that I may have suggested, or, didn't try the smoothie recipe we were going to do, they still want to meet and be like, okay, well, that was a crazy month. Can we start over? That's ideal. Someone who's just ready for support, ready for guidance, wants a coach, in the good
Mm-hmm.
times and the bad times, I think. Um,
And
that's one
what
piece of it.
specific what's your philosophy? What is your approach? Are you counting macros? Are
Mm-mm.
you I'm not even going to list the dozens
Yeah.
of diets that are out there.
Thank you.
We all know what they are. Let's
Yeah.
not even go down there. But like, what is your approach? Because there are so many different
Right.
approaches.
Yes. So there are a couple key big pillars that I feel like tell you who I am as a nutritionist and a health coach. And one of them is honestly, I did just mention the whole like step by step, someone who's willing to just take little steps. The health coach in me is like, my approach is we do small incremental changes in our life and our behavior that that take us to the next step, that are, it's the power of the baby step, honestly, that gives us
Hmm.
confidence when we get one little win, whether that was I had lunch today for a lot of people, because that seems to be really a big challenge. I
Is that mostly men?
no,
Is that men?
no,
It's women?
yep,
Okay, okay.
it's
Because
across
my
the board.
husband like
Yeah,
doesn't eat lunch.
okay,
He
yeah.
just forgets to eat lunch.
So lunch. I could talk about lunch for a long time, but anywho, stepping stones. Like someone who, my approach is getting people small incremental wins, so they're like, okay, I did that. Now what's next? So that's
Hmm.
just kind of more of my method, but really, like, my beliefs are around bioindividuality. Our bodies, our
Mm.
genetics, our experiences, even our environment, all these elements that make us unique. Like that's a huge piece of what might work for me and what might not work for someone else. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's just really important to pay attention to, from
Hmm.
one client to the next. And then
Hmm.
root cause, functional, looking at a functional approach to nutrition, to wellness, is just, you need to know the whole story, all of the pieces of your history, your health history. Those matter. How you process emotions, like all of that matters. And I'm not saying that I have like this, talk therapy session with each client every time, but it's really about, getting to understand where they're coming from, so that I can see what influences their decision making, why
Hmm.
somebody might be having trouble eating lunch, what is that they can't take time for themselves. Like, let's go a little bit deeper and try to get to that root cause. And then they're like, oh, if I feel like it's such a huge piece of working with people is just knowing the whole picture.
And what
Yeah.
are they typically coming to you for? Because I think the number one thing is weight loss, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I would say that would be a good one of the top pieces, but when you were just hit on it a minute ago when you said the word overwhelm. So
Hmm.
people are coming to me because they're overwhelmed by all of the info, all of the options, all of the confusing information that's out there regarding whatever their deeper issue is. But it's the overwhelm of,
Hmm.
how do I eat to serve this health issue better? How do I,
Hmm.
whether it is, because yes, people come to me for, weight loss, of course. I think that's always going to be there, but it's also about like, how do I help feed my family best? I just have no energy. So that becomes being focused on, let's work on your energy and where's the root
Hmm.
cause of why you don't have the energy. And then we can focus on how you can feel good about feeding your family better. So it's
Are
usually
you doing
multi-pronged.
are you doing any type of functional testing? Are you looking at hormones? Are you doing food sensitivity testing? I've done a lot of this, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could
You
just spout
you
out all
can
of the
just you can
tests.
list them.
Yeah, like
I'm actually like really, I really feel like that will be like 2.0 of my offerings.
mhm,
I really am interested in all of the testing. I find it to be very informative, and it really does help like put a magnifying glass over certain issues. And so that I feel like that's in my future. I currently don't do it, but I've worked
mhm,
I got the opportunity when still in the city to work alongside a naturopathic doctor in the city, and
mhm,
that was really, it brought energy and excitement to me. I really enjoyed looking at the labs, and a lot of like gut health issues, like you get to see the good and the bad in people's flora and what's going on in their gut. But seeing the labs is something that I think can only be helpful, really, except for the fact that you have to know that it's not the end all be all. So labs are not, we can't, you can't just rely on labs. And if you're going to a practitioner who is solely relying on labs, I would be wary, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some other kind of trendy things that
Oh,
are out there.
okay.
Let's talk about intermittent fasting.
Oh, good. Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Check this out. I have this right here. It's well, the cover's off, but it's Fast Like a Girl.
Yes.
By Dr.
Mindy Peltz.
Mindy Peltz.
I have read it.
Yes. So, and that was going to be one of my little things I hoped we talked about, because I used to be very much like roll my eyes about it. Like 8 years ago, when it was the rage, but it was just, there was no information. It was just very general, like blanket statement, like fast, eat for this little window of time, you'll be good. You're going to lose weight. Little did, at this time, when people were really starting to talk about it and get on board with it, there was no discussion about, well, are you female or male? Are you, in what phase of your cycle are you?
Are you menstruating or not menstruating?
It is so, right. It was so, my eyes were just like popped out of my head when I was reading this book by Dr. Peltz, because I was like, oh, wow, this makes so much sense that during this phase of your cycle, if certain hormones are surging, your body does not want to fast. Or if certain hormones are raised, your body wants to fast. So a woman and her husband, they could be fasting at the same time, doing this challenge together for a couple months. The guy could just be dropping weight, and the woman's like, what the heck? I'm working just as hard. But if we're fasting at the wrong time during our cycle, then, we're sabotaging ourselves. So that was eye-opening. And then I stopped rolling my eyes at fasting, and really came to understand that there are great times and great ways to do it. And I think there's like, I think this about a lot of things, but there's a season for it. I feel like it can be a great lifestyle, if you really understand the ins and outs. And I think that's why, working with a professional can be helpful, just to get yourself going. And when I really became into this book, and the methodology of Mindy Peltz, I was still nursing. So I was like, okay, I'm a lactating mother, so I really can't, it was very helpful to know all these things that we might have overlooked, and just, if I was just fasting all the time and I was lactating mother, well, gosh, that's not the right situation. So just, I think knowing the parameters now, I think there's some really good uses, and learning that there's, you can look at a specific, anxiety, or, cognitive function, or immune system, or fertility, infertility. You can look at how it can be used to benefit so many different areas. I think the hard part is socially, or I just have a hard time, we have 2 kids, and I grew up in a household where we had dinner late a lot. So I've had a really hard time as a mom getting dinner on the table before 6:15, 6:30. Like that's a miracle. So anyway, so by the time you're done eating, or maybe it's a night where you're enjoying a glass of wine or whatever, like just timing that all out, like fitting everything in. And then, okay, well, if I want to fast X amount of hours, that means I can't have breakfast until 10. So yeah, it's just, it's something that everyone has to work into their own, like the culture of their household, and what's going on their social calendar, and figure out a way to make it work for most of the time, right? Not all the time.
The one piece of it that I don't understand, and you may or may not be able to answer the question, is how coffee plays into the breaking of the fast. Because for me personally, like, I have to have coffee in the morning. So, and I kind of want to talk about coffee a little bit too.
Okay.
But my understanding is you can have a cup of coffee, but you can't have any type of cream, milk, oat
Mm-hmm.
milk, anything like that, because then that like breaks the fast and then your body starts doing whatever it's going to do.
So yeah, so you have a good general understanding. So if you don't happen to be a black coffee drinker, then yeah. So whenever you consume that first, so coffee essentially is water, but it's got
Mm-hmm.
other pieces in it. There's no caloric value, just like tea.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you can have either one of those, without any cream or any sugar, or whatever. But as soon as you add something, generally, if you add something to your coffee, then your blood sugar is now being affected. So you're out of your fasted
Mm,
state. However,
got it.
I have heard of people. My sister did this. She actually she just wanted to test, one of the little blood sugar. She pricked her finger. She did the whole thing to test her blood sugar before and after. She added just like a little bit of cream into her coffee, and it
Mm-hmm.
didn't pull her out because cream is pretty low in sugar, and yeah, pretty low in sugar. It didn't pull her out of the fasted state. So she's like, yes, I can have like a tablespoon and a half of cream in the morning, still be fasting. Like, this is great. It totally depends on the person. Now, if you were to add like a creamer that had some sort of sweetener
Oh,
or
yeah,
like
yeah,
almond
yeah,
milk filler type of thing, like, you never know. Those
yeah.
things will
Like
probably
the
pull you out of
coffee
your,
mate caramel de
yeah,
leche.
those,
Like,
those.
no,
But yeah,
no,
so
yeah.
for me, I kind of, I followed my sister's in her footsteps, and I kind of checked myself as well. And so I add a little bit, when I'm still in my quote unquote time of fasting hours, I will have some cashew, just a little bit of just homemade cashew almond milk. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
affect my blood sugar. It's not like, again, it's not a huge sugary, pumpkin spice latte, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something for those people who are like, I cannot drink black coffee, but I want to be able to enjoy it before I'm done fasting. It's kind of,
Totally.
yeah. So that's kind of the issue. It's just whenever your blood sugar is affected, then you're not in the fasted state. But some things
Got
with
it.
really high fat, like cream or cashew
Mm-hmm.
cream or whatever, can kind of keep
Mm-hmm.
you in the fasted state for a while.
Let's talk about coffee because it's
Okay.
something that I have thought about giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for me personally, like right now, I'm doing no dairy, I'm doing no gluten.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't drank alcohol in almost 6 years.
Wow.
And so, like,
Amazing.
I know
That's great.
coffee's like my last
Right.
thing,
Okay. Okay.
but I struggle with now that I'm 40,
Mm-hmm.
40 something, 43. Sometimes I feel like it makes me agitated.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel like I don't have the patience I
Mm-hmm.
might have with my kids.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it makes me feel, even just one, it just makes me kind of feel a little stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
I cortisol is kind of where I'm going with
Right.
this train of thought.
Yeah.
We are hearing a lot about cortisol, especially for women in their 40s as they're going through perimenopause.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. And if you have seen any clients that have, gotten their cortisol in check and how that's kind of affected their health.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can relate to your symptoms and that I haven't drank regular coffee in over 10 years. So I love coffee for coffee. I love the flavor, I love the taste, and I drink decaf. And we can talk about decaf in a second too. But so I can relate to you.
So you're 10 years. Wow.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, I have some green tea in the morning, but I'm not. I don't need the regular coffee. So I
Yeah.
literally have one, you know, just for fun decaf in the morning because it still meets that comforting need. It's a hot, warm beverage. I still
Hmm.
enjoy the smell and the taste, but I I would sweat so bad and my heart would feel uncomfortable and I would have headaches if I didn't have it. So yeah, all of these symptoms and the agitation, I can relate to that. I do have, so it's not that coffee is like an unhealthy ingredient, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
how much of that caffeine are we consuming, and how is it affecting our nerves? So
Mm-hmm.
if it's noticeably affecting our nerves, and we're toying with the idea, man, should I cut back? Then we probably should cut back. But there are
Mm-hmm.
ways to do that where you can still maybe, I know people who drink half calf only, and they have one
Mm-hmm.
half calf cup of coffee in the morning, or they have one half cup. It's hard to say. Calf cup in the morning,
Half calf.
half calf, and then if they want another coffee, it's decaffeinated.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, as we age, it definitely affects our nerves more, it seems. And I don't know all the
Okay.
science behind that, but it, it's just, our bodies, like you alluded to, like the different shifts, things are shifting. So, also, it's the dehydration piece. So there are so many things that it can affect, but it's not that in and of itself, it's this horrible thing. It's just how much how much we consume, how it's affecting our mental, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, if you're feeling agitated or impatient, that's
Mm-hmm.
not a happy
That's
place.
not good.
It's not a happy place to
Yeah.
be. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think, my advice, if we were working together, would be, let's find a way to totally cut it down. And you
Mm-hmm.
can still, if you still feel like you want that enjoyable cup, let's see how we can make that happen still, but still, like, really cut down the caffeine and see how that works in your life.
There's so many alternatives
Yeah.
now. I mean, teas are super
Yeah.
prevalent, and there's lots of really delicious teas.
Right.
There's also a lot of these mushroom
Yeah.
coffees. Have you
Yeah.
tried them? Are
Yeah.
you
I've tried some of the mushroom, chioga and all the different fun. I mean, I just think they're fun because it's just kind of just a little novelty. But I think that whatever works for you that is not adding to that caffeine load, I think is great. So mushrooms, they have lots of phytonutrients in them. So those are
Mhm.
great.
And adaptogens? Adaptogens are
Yeah.
another thing that I'm hearing a lot
So
about.
yeah, adaptogens are these really cool.
Adaptogens,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
That sounds like a
yeah.
good brand though for an adaptogen. Aptogen.
Aptogen.
Yeah. Write that one down. Anyway, so yeah, adaptogens are great, phytonutrients, plant-based um,
Right.
elements that kind of say to your nervous system, what do you need? Do you need me to amp you up or calm you down, or I can help you out? And that's literally what an adaptogen is.
Yeah, I don't understand the science behind that. Like
Yeah,
ashwagandha is people are talking about that. It's
yeah,
like it could give you energy and calm you down. It's
yeah.
like it sounds awesome.
I know. Um, yeah. So we should look into that name. What was it? Adaptin. Oh, now I lost it. The name that you said.
Aptogen.
Yes.
Aptogen?
Aptogen. Yes. Okay.
My
Yeah.
new branding name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, honestly,
we could
they're
look into
they're
that.
really great for your central nervous system stress levels. So they're herbs that support you dealing with stress. And it's
Hmm.
not that they amp you up, but I think they just make you feel better, right?
They
So
provide you with that. Yeah,
so
they
yeah, I
provide
mean,
you with
and I
energy.
I personally have a big passion for matcha. So I
I
have,
tried.
yeah,
I can't do it.
yeah. When I first tried it, I was like, this is just boring. There's not much flavor. But I think it's because, well, I don't know. It's a ritual. I get the ceremonial grade tea, so it's a good grade of a green tea. But if you're someone who doesn't like a bitter, you know,
It's
it can be
pretty
bitter.
bitter. Yeah. Do you add a sweetener to yours?
So
Do you add like a
I
honey?
literally add like just a tiny little, like a little squeeze of date syrup into mine.
Okay.
So it's kind
I got one recently at a cafe in San
of, mhm.
Francisco, which I will not name,
Okay,
but it's a well-known cafe.
okay,
And it was like a $6 matcha,
at
and I took
least.
one sip, and I was like, "Oh, this is disgusting. I can't drink
Oh
it."
no. So that's the bottom line is when you're out and about and or for me, this is the matcha experience. It totally just depends on what type of nut milk the cafe has. That makes or
Mm,
breaks it for me. If it's kind of just like the run of the mill, like Silk brand of almond milk or whatever, it tastes way different than a different brand. So yeah. So anyway,
That's another good
I
segue. I want to talk about seed oils and what your thoughts are.
okay, this
Because
is
right now I'm not doing dairy because dairy and also gluten are inflammatory, and agree or disagree.
yep.
And I personally have like a lot of inflammation in my body and dealing with inflammation. So
Right.
I had my naturopath said, and I don't have any issues with them. I don't have stomach issues that I'm aware of, etc. And she said, yeah, but you have inflammation.
Right.
And it was like this light bulb moment for me. And I was like, oh,
Right. So you don't
okay.
have to be lactose intolerant to be affected by dairy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been doing that since July 15th, which is just become a new way of life. So I have switched over, all of my traditional milk products. I am allowing myself to have sheep and goat because they're supposed to be anti-inflammatory.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm,
No.
saying any of this incorrectly.
No.
And the Mediterranean diet is really rich in sheep's milk, a lot of feta, that kind
Yep.
of thing. And it's a totally different protein structure. It's different, and it's more similar to what like a human milk would be. Apparently, that's just what I've heard and what I've read. My point is, I love oat milk,
Okay.
but it has seed oil in
Yeah.
it. It has rapeseed oil in it as
Yep.
like the number 2 ingredient.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like feeling I can't do anything right.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have the dairy. And really this is maybe just because I shouldn't be drinking coffee at all anyways, but it feels like I can't do anything right because now seed oils are getting a lot of attention and more or less are being demonized. So
Yeah.
I would love your thoughts on that.
Okay. Well, from the where I was taught at Bowman, essentially seed oils, pretty much the type you're talking about, like canola oil, rapeseed, what's safflower, things that are in everything. If you look at any type of packaged processed food,
Everything.
yeah, yeah. I
Everything.
mean, even yeah. So anyway, those oils are highly processed, and then when they're highly processed, they're oxidized, and oxidation is a huge proponent of inflammation, first of all. And also, that oxidation piece is what's promoting the high cholesterol, the heart disease, the diabetes. It's not just, saturated fat for a while was the devil, and now we're focusing on seed oils, which is a good progression because saturated of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. We need some saturated fat. So anyway, the seed oil, it's about the high processing element that goes into creating this oil. So it just, your body doesn't recognize it the same way it recognizes like an extrovert pressed, a natural type of fat. So that's, if you're going to get something fried, it's just, in my opinion, like for my mantra, it's a very special occasion. If we're somewhere and I see, oh, we fry our French fries in tallow or duck fat, I'm like,
Right.
guys, we get fries. This is exciting. Like, I'm really excited about it. And I'm not just like, oh,
Okay, who's doing that? Where's this happening?
yeah, those
Where?
those tiny little like farm to table cafes in the middle of nowhere, or
Yeah.
remember Bel
And
Campo? Yeah.
McDonald's used to
Oh
use
yes. Yeah,
tallow.
that's where it
Yeah.
started. And you know what?
Yeah.
Like in the 50s and 60s, people didn't blow up the way we have
Now
now.
McDonald's French fries, because there is apparently like a Senate hearing right now, and I just was recapping some of it. Their French fries have 11 ingredients in the United
Interesting.
States.
Mm-hmm.
And in Europe they have 3,
Yeah.
with
See,
salt being
yeah,
optional.
that's why I don't get
Yeah.
stomach aches in Europe. That should be a T-shirt. Like I can eat a croissant in Europe, and I'm a gluten-free a person for 15 years due to that whole IBS thing. But
Right.
so yeah, the oils, unfortunately, are not great.
Yeah.
And you actually can purchase like at a Whole Foods, you could buy organic canola oil, but it's really not what we want to be putting in our bodies if we can choose, So
Mhm.
organic, that label doesn't really, in my opinion, stop the fact that this is, this highly ultra processed thing that then, is not serving my body well at all. But
Mhm.
I know, so the oat milk piece, there are a couple oat milks at the store that you can buy that don't have oils. But if you're out and you want to go to a cafe and you want to
Mhm.
get a nut milk, oat milk has oil in it and almond milk has weird gum in it and sweeteners.
Well,
But
what's wrong? Like some of them say like no carrageenan, and my
yeah,
understanding, and I'm not pronouncing it correctly, the
yeah, I
carrageenan
can't either.
is just like it's just an algae.
Yeah,
It's just a
I
type of
don't find,
seaweed. So what's the
yeah,
issue with that?
no, I don't find that to be like this huge red flag. For some people, they just can't digest it well.
Oh,
So
okay.
certain digestive disorders, it's just, they might get a stomach ache or whatever. But it's not like this, like, avoid this at all costs situation for that. Yeah. Same with guar
Got
gum.
it.
Guar gum, you'll see a sign, like on a, now, like, yeah, sometimes they'll say no gums or whatever on a,
No gums, no
bread
fillers.
or
Yeah.
coconut milk. But it's really about digestion, and some people have trouble with it. So,
I want to give a little shout out because, this podcast is all about local
mm,
businesses in San Francisco Bay Area, and there's a gluten-free bread that I found in Petaluma. Are you familiar
well,
with
you,
Mama
are you gonna?
Mel's?
Oh, okay, yeah. You do that one, and then I'll do the other one.
Okay, what's the other one?
Bread seriously.
Bread Seriously.
Hmm.
Okay, where are they out of?
So we were baking in the same kitchen when I was doing Worthy Granola.
Okay,
But now her operation is in Berkeley, and she's now
okay,
like shipping. So she has like an online business. You can buy it from
awesome.
anywhere. You can do a subscription. It's sourdough, and she does
Mm,
lots of different varieties. And she does ones that will say like no gum, just pure ingredients. So yeah, Bread Seriously is an amazing sourdough gluten free company. But I know
I
the
love it.
Mel's that you're talking about too.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's really good.
I think we were in Santa Rosa and we were eating at a restaurant, and I asked the server, where can I get this bread? And they're pretty much like,
Mhm.
I think you can get it at a farmer's market, or where did you get it?
Mm. Oh, so Mama Mel's is at the co-op in
Okay.
Sebastopol. It is also, I saw it, it's frozen.
Okay.
And I think it is also, it might be at Oliver's.
Okay. Okay.
It might be at Oliver's.
Cool. Yeah. I've never
I know
seen
I
it
saw,
in the
I know
store.
I saw it somewhere else, but they had a couple different varieties at the co-op, and
Nice.
I don't eat it a lot. I just eat it when I really feel like I need
Yeah.
that fix.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't really eat any of the gluten-free alternatives and dairy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are really processed,
They
and
are. Yeah.
it's just another processed
Right.
thing. So I kind of stay away from it, but
Yeah.
once in a while I will have
Yeah.
the Mama Mel's bread.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed the flavor of that one. And then bread seriously, the ingredients are again very small, like just a few ingredients and some, wild fermentation and love. So,
So let's talk a little bit about, and we talked about it a little bit before, but you and I are both in our 40s. We both have children about the same
mhm.
age. What are you seeing in terms of like the changes that are required for women in their
Yeah.
40s?
Well, gosh, some of the factors or the things that are happening, in our 40s, like the tangible lifestyle things, your priorities have shifted since you were maybe in your 30s. Especially if you have children, you're doubly,
Hmm.
you know, busy, and then if you have a career, forget about it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
many so it feels like you have less time. First of all, just that less time piece really changes
Yes.
what we're focusing on, what we're putting in our bodies sometimes. So I feel like the changes, the hormonal changes that are happening can be very unpredictable. Whatever stage you may be in, you might think, oh, I'm headed towards perimenopause, and then all of a sudden your
Hmm.
body's like, just kidding, that was a false start. So really, it's really about kind of paying attention to like maybe looking, taking stock, like a little self, exam. I'm not getting the right word, but anywho, um, looking at yourself, looking at your meals. Okay, where am I the most stressed? Where's the most anxiety around my food? Okay, let's look at that
Mhm.
piece. And maybe we need more protein in the first place because I feel like most women um, might be lacking in that area. I could be
Can we
wrong.
talk about that for a
Yeah,
second? Because I get really overwhelmed. Excuse me.
yeah,
When I see like, you need 130 grams of protein, or take your weight
yeah.
minus
Divide by
10 pounds and
two.
divide it by 4, and then like
Right.
you should be eating, all this protein. And that is a hard one
Yeah.
for me. It's it's
Yeah.
it's hard to get in that protein.
It is hard because, again, yeah, it takes focus, it takes effort, it takes ingredients, it takes things on hand, right? So, so for me, I gave this talk in the spring about protein to women, and I was just sharing with them. First of all, I think if you took half your weight, and then that would be like the grams that you're aiming for.
Mhm.
That's just kind of an easier way to think about it, but not
But what
asking
if you
people.
don't what if you don't want to weigh your weight?
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Well, then take what you estimate and then go from there. Um,
No, but meaning
oh
like what if you
no,
don't
yeah,
want to, like if you're trying to lose weight,
right. Yeah,
do you take
I
what
would.
you want to weigh or what you actually weigh?
That's a great question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I
Okay.
would say that there's an average in between those two numbers that would be just
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
Um, but yeah, so back to that whole idea of, okay, where can we fit protein into our life? Depending on if you are fasting, that is the one downside that I really forgot to mention regarding the fasting pieces.
Mm.
If you have a smaller window,
Mhm.
you have to cram a lot of great nutrients and protein and such into that window. So that's the
Mhm.
one thing to be aware of. Okay, how can I get a little bit more? For example, sometimes in my matcha, I will put collagen. And
Mhm.
even though some people say, hey, it doesn't have every single amino acid, so it's not a complete protein, it is still
Mhm.
acts as if a protein. So I'm going to treat it like a protein. And so while I'm drinking my matcha, I can be like, oh, wow, I've got 10 grams of protein in this beverage. So just, I think finding out, realizing where
So
the,
so you're talking about like is it vital
yes.
nutrients? So
Yeah.
is that protein count legit?
So,
Like it said, because it says I want to say 20-ish grams.
yeah.
Is that
Well, yeah, I
legit?
mean,
Because
this
that
is
doesn't
just,
fill me up. It
no,
doesn't fill me
no,
up.
it
It doesn't
doesn't.
feel like
It's not a complete meal, in my opinion,
okay.
but it's not just like we don't just discount it. So,
Okay.
but I do feel, there are people who say it's lacking one or two amino acids, so it's not a full protein, but
Right.
you're still getting protein. You're still getting a lot of
Okay.
amino acids, so there's plenty of benefit. But I'm just saying, let's find ways through looking at our typical day, where is the area where we can get a little bit more protein that we're not right now? So I guess
Mhm.
identifying that at first. So if someone's
Mhm.
like, I kind of hardly ever have breakfast, it's like, can we fit a not too sweet, just a little bit, a great smoothie in there? Because that's a great
Mhm.
place to get some protein when you're on the go or
Mhm.
reading or driving or whatever. And I hate to advocate for eating and driving, but it's better than skipping and then your blood
Yes.
sugar crashing, and then it kind
Right.
of sabotages your day. So,
Do you have a favorite? You're probably doing like a vegan protein powder.
so I kind of go in between, and sometimes I do like half of the collagen because that has like all of
Mhm.
those great amino acids, and great for joints, skin, gut health, hair, all that stuff. But for years I've used Garden of Life. It's unsweetened. It's a plant-based protein. But
Mhm.
I will say that I kind of feel like I'm in one of those places where when you're, an expert in a certain field and then new information comes out and you're kind of bewildered, the protein powder world is not everything is created equal. And it comes to light that, protein powder is processed. So how far down the line am I going talking about eating whole food, real food? So I've started doing a lot more of like literally flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed. Like those are real food ingredients that have protein, have good fats. If you can handle a yogurt or a plant-based yogurt, or plant-based yogurts don't have much protein, but if you can handle a yogurt,
they kind of have nothing. Like the coconut yogurts, it's like there's nothing in this.
It's a space filler. It's like a way to eat your breakfast, but yeah. So anyway, protein. I feel like Garden of Life, the unflavored one is great. If you're going to go down that like philosophy or that discussion of, okay, well, protein powders are highly processed, then I have to take that into account, and that's not wrong. So I'm kind of in that world, or in that.
But you're also a busy mom, and a lot of your clients are probably busy moms.
Protein powders, I want to love them. I want them to be great because they are super helpful, and it's a great way for people, especially for people who can't stomach breakfast, but they can stomach, sipping on something that's kind of cool and soothing.
What does that mean, they can't stomach breakfast?
Like some people literally like feel nauseous when I think about eating breakfast.
Okay, that's kind of me. Tell me more about that. I have a hard time eating in the morning. What is that? And I did not invite you on so that we could just talk about me. I promise.
No. I mean,
promise.
This is why we're here. So some people literally, there is a brain chemical switch that your brain is just like not into that right now, not into that, idea of consuming nutrients or whatever it is at this time. And I've known many people like this. So you're not alone, but it's really about, so from what I've read, it's like for these types of people, there's a certain, if you can just have like force yourself a little bit, even if it's, so a smoothie is a great example. It's a great little gateway. It's like, okay, I don't want to have breakfast, but I will sip on this, and that really does, it gets your metabolism going. It gets your brain going. And besides, in a different way than some people attest to caffeine doing. So yeah, it just, unfortunately, some people are wired that way, and it might be it could be a deficiency or an imbalance, or just, it definitely could be hormonal. So,
okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we have just a couple minutes left, and I just want you to share where people can find you, what's upcoming. I know that you're like constantly doing workshops and networking, and you and I both moved from San Francisco, and we are out there in the community, building community, networking with other female entrepreneurs and trying to meet clients. And so where can people find you?
So on Instagram, I'm Worthy Health and Wellness. And so that's, I strive, maybe in 2025, looking forward, strive to be even more active, but it's really something that I love putting things out there, even if it's just, here's what I had for lunch today. Like that's what I really want to do more of.
People love that. Yeah.
Here's
they want to see what you're eating.
Yeah. Here's my lunch. And even if I don't, like, I think I have to let myself know, you don't need to give the recipe. You don't need to tell them every single thing. Just show them and highlight your main ingredients.
Inspire them.
Just highlight your main ingredients. So that I love being real in that way. Like, here's my lunch. I love to interact with people in that way. And then, yes, I've been doing some talks. Those are more in person, but I hope to do more podcasts. This is very exciting and fun. But really, I mean, my website is Worthy SF. It's still SF.
Nice.
.com. And it's, it's relevant. We're SF area.
We're very
And
close to San Francisco.
Yeah. So those are kind of the two, like, social, as of now, the social elements. And then when I do, talks or little events or whatnot, that's usually through partnering with other local businesses, and that's usually featured through another local business like Goodness Gracious Eats. That's an amazing catering, North Bay, Marin, Santa Rosa wine country catering company, and I've partnered with them. So you can actually find me on their website, Goodness Gracious Eats. And I was partnering with Sonoma Yoga Studio in town here, and I did a nutrition class in August.
There's so much great food in Sonoma County. That was something that I didn't particularly realize, is there's so many great products that are made here.
Right. Oh yeah.
That, like Laura Chanel goat cheese and traditional medicinals.
Sonoma Brinery. I mean,
so many. There's a lot.
Yeah. I feel like
the cider company.
Yes.
Yeah, with the Golden Gate cider, the yerba mate is here. The list goes on and on. It
does.
There's actually a little store in Montgomery Village that is all Sonoma County, and they have a ton of food products in there.
Oh, fun.
Which is really, really neat.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check that. We'll have to check that out together.
We will. So I feel like we just literally scratched the surface. Totally. And I feel like we should definitely do a round 2.
Yes, I would. Because, we need to say, like, one of my favorite topics is that diet is a 4-letter word, a bad 4-letter word. And there's so many other things to talk about, like mindful eating. We have a lot of other,
and we didn't even talk about Ozempic, which I kind of wanted to talk about.
And that's such a hot topic.
It is. Oh, so let's do a part 2. 2.0.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeanne. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. All right, Emily. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. For more info, you can always find us at yin-project.com. Make it a great day.